Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, the political dragon. I'm here in our offices in the Bronx. It's about 7 p.m. on March 7th, and I wanted to take a moment to talk to you. I know that in just about 2 hours, we're going to hear Joe Biden talk about the State of the Union 2024 for the United States. And he's going to try and convince Americans that he somehow isn't aiding and abetting a terrorist organization by building a port for Hamas, who continue to have American hostages in their possession being sexually tortured, and that's just insane. But before we get to that, today in New York State, one of the progressive blue states, we got an example of the problem when a politician promises to do something. And that's exactly what we're hearing from Gov Hochul, governor of New York. She's promised to do something. But the question that should be asked is she doing something efficient? Is she doing something that's effective? And why does she have to do this in the first place? Well, we're going to go over that very briefly with you in just a second. We thank you for being part of our audience. And we want you to know that if this is the first time, we welcome you. Thank you for being part of our audience. We want you to know we do long-form political commentary, and every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream with you to reach out across all the internet that we can, to hear from voices from anywhere in the world, to call in, to give us your chats, to tell us what you think about all the issues that matter. And today for this moment, we're going to take a look at New York State, which I think represents what we see in many states across this nation, especially with the more progressive mindset. And what we're seeing here is today, Gov Hochul came out and she says she has a 5-point plan to protect New Yorkers on the subway. Now, as we have been seeing over the last 3-4 years now, there has been not just an elevation of the crime in New York City subways, but the amount of violence in those crimes on New York City subways. And it's been very horrific. It's been terrifying to many, many people. But this has been happening for years. This isn't new. It didn't just happen this year or in the last couple of months. This has been happening for years. And she finally now is starting to take action, oddly enough, in an election year, 2024, ahead of the governor's race and ahead of the mayor's race for New York. It kind of seems coincidental that she wants to take this action only now and not years ago when we first saw this starting to happen. And the first thing I have to say about her plan to protect New Yorkers is, why are you still allowing illegal aliens to enter America and to enter into New York State? See, part of the problem that we have today is that we have selectively decided that certain laws should be enforced and certain laws shouldn't be enforced. Now, that's a problem that's not just limited to illegal aliens, it's also to some of the more radical organizations like BLM, Antifa, Indivisible New York, Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, and others of their ilk, who went around New York in 2020 and 2021 trying to create autonomous zones, burning down parts of cities, attacking citizens who are eating dinner while they were, quote, protesting, quote, peacefully. And then we saw that under Gov Hochul, under the progressive mindset, 6,000 of these individuals that attacked and destroyed property, attacked individuals, were all released. Just their charges waved away. Those assaults, that rioting, that disturbance of the peace, all of those crimes that they did commit, and they were arrested for, were waved off. Those laws don't count. And illegal aliens got to see that. At the same time that this was happening, we saw an inflow from the day that Joe Biden took office. We saw a massive inflow of migrant caravans entering into the United States, migrants entering from both the southern and northern border, coming into America, and they were being let in Well, again, the law selectively was chosen by New York State to not be enforced, that they were welcomed. In fact, they were rewarded. Kathy Hochul has gone out of her way to make sure that these illegal aliens are able to stay at 3- and 4-star hotels, that American citizens are being kicked out of shelters for those illegal aliens to be put into them. We are spending billions just in New York City alone, not including the illegal aliens throughout New York State, not counting what we're seeing in Boston, Chicago, LA, across this nation. It's bankrupting cities, states, and it's destroying our infrastructure. So one of the sources of the problem is illegal aliens who have been rewarded for breaking the law and witnessing that American citizens aren't punished by the law when they break it, and so they get to break the law too. And that couples with the bail reform we have seen, which also has a part in this, that when people do get arrested, if they are actually charged, they're released immediately to go out and either commit more crimes, as we have seen happen, or intimidate the witnesses of their crimes, which we have seen happen, or to completely disappear, as we have seen happen, in particular in 42nd Street, the illegal aliens that attacked police officers at 42nd Street. 5 of the 11 individuals just ran to California, another sanctuary state where they will be protected and probably never be seen in New York State again. So the problem here, Kathy Hochul, is that you have not enforced the law. You have selectively picked and chosen which laws are to be enforced, and you have allowed illegal aliens to flood into the city and the state, endangering the lives of others as they take the cues from what you have done already. So her 5-point plan doesn't address this. She doesn't say that bail reform is going to be removed. She doesn't say that they're going to change the way they prosecute crimes. She doesn't say that she's going to close the border and try to remove the illegal aliens that are adding to the problem. She doesn't deal with any of that. So automatically we know she's not serious. This isn't about protecting you. This is about doing something. The key thing that you always have to be afraid of with politicians. She's doing something. Now, it's not effective. It's not efficient. It's not going to make you safe, but she is doing something. And therefore, you should re-elect her, you should support Democrats, and you should elect Biden in 2024. This is her mindset. This is what she's placing before us. And I think that is absolutely horrendous. But let's look at the plan she actually did put in place for people to make you think you're going to be safe, to make you feel safe as you live with not being safe. She's going to have 1,000 New York State police officers, MTA PD, and the New York National Guard to support the New York Police Department doing bag checks. Stop right there. She's activating the National Guard? The National Guard are an emergency military force. They're not meant to be police. Their job is not for policing. The National Guard is activated when you have a disaster, a natural disaster, like a hurricane, like an earthquake, like severe flooding. They're not supposed to be police. That's not their job. Okay, but she's going to activate the National Guard, which means that there is an emergency situation, that this isn't just simply protecting people, that this is elevated to a level of extreme emergency for the state. We are in a perilous situation. That's what nationalizing or activating the National Guard means, that this is a state of emergency. She doesn't want to use the words emergency because it would highlight previous failures. She doesn't want to highlight the fact that this means that we are in a crisis mode that cannot be resolved by just simply hiring more police over time. No, there has to be an immediate reaction, and it has to happen right now, which means it's crisis mode. She's failed. All of her previous policies have failed so substantially that people have become endangered to the point that crisis mode must be enacted. Okay, So that's the 1,000 officers. Let's also go on. 1,000 officers, that's to cover all of New York City and the roughly 8 million individuals that live in New York City. That's not a lot, but let's go on. Governor Hochul introduces a bill to allow judges to ban individuals convicted of assault within the transit system from service. Let's think about that for a second. Kathy Hochul is introducing a bill. So she's doing something. Mind you, she still has to get the assembly and the state senators to actually vote on this. They actually have to make a decision. They actually have to approve this, which we have seen they're not likely to do. These are the same people that are more than happy to have illegal aliens flood our cities and our states. They're more than happy to wave away crimes and to not prosecute crimes. So we have no reason to believe that they would suddenly want to now institute punishment for a crime when all the other crimes are perfectly okay. So Kathy Hochul has an out. If the state legislature doesn't do this, she has an out. I did something. I tried. And of course, we can hear the state legislature later say that Republicans were the reason, even though they're the minority, they have no control of New York State, its laws at all, that, oh, well, it was the Republicans, it's their fault. See how they're setting you up for failure? See how they are setting you up to re-elect and support Democrats for failure. But she's going to introduce this bill, which will allow judges to ban individuals convicted of assault. Here's the thing. If you have been convicted of assault, well then, doesn't that mean you go to jail? Shouldn't you be in jail because of that? Now, if we look at New York state law, this is New York assault crime, the New York Penal Law, Article 120, which deals with assault, which can be a felony or a misdemeanor. In the third degree, well, that would mean somebody punched you. If someone punched you, that's an assault in the third degree, which we see when people get mugged very often, or sometimes fighting for various reasons in New York City. Okay. Second degree would be a bit more severe, where you're getting serious injuries, where you have to go to the hospital, where you need stitches or surgery, something that is far more substantial, far more devastating to the individual. And the first degree would be something that might lead to death. That was just short of beating a person to death, cutting or shooting a person to death. In the third degree, if you're in the third degree, you just punch somebody, well, that can be punished up to a year in jail, or you can get 3 years of probation. Assault in the second degree. This is the area that she's looking at. This is what we're talking about the people who have been hit by bottles, cut with knives, people who have been kicked onto train tracks. And this is pretty common. We'll get to that in 1 second. But that's the main focus. The second degree, maybe even the first degree. Well, that's a violent felony and punishable by up to 2 years, mandatory 2 years in prison, possibly as much as 7 or 5 years on probation. So if we're looking back, and this is the main source of the problem in New York subways at this time, it's the assault of the second degree, a violent felony. So Kathy Hochul says she wants judges to remove these individuals according to this bill, which says that that someone could be sentenced up to 3 years being banned from using the subway system, the MTA system. That's the buses, the trains, all of it. Well, there's a couple of problems with this. First of all, it's a 2-year mandatory sentence, possibly up to 7. So they won't be in New York. So this is meaningless. For many of the people, for basically anyone who is actually convicted of the second degree of a violent felony, of assault, well, they're mandatory 2 years. She's going for 3 years banned on the MTA. they're not here. 2/3 of what she's asking for is useless. It doesn't apply. It won't affect anyone because they're going to be in jail. They won't be on the MTA. So she'll look good and she can turn around, and this is definitely engineered to manipulate the voters, because you're going to say, well, she's been effective. We've lowered the number of people who are using the MTA, except that's because they're in jail. That's because they were convicted of a class 2 felony. Class 2 violent crime, assault. They're not available. So that's a problem there, that it's really ineffective. It doesn't do anything. You're not protecting people more or less than just putting them in jail. Same result. Unless you're giving them probation, 5 years of probation. But why would you give them probation if they caused someone to go to a hospital? If they were so violent, so dangerous that they had to be arrested and they were convicted, then why are we even bothering with probation for 5 years? This is not someone we would want in our society in that manner. So again, it's redundant and it's ineffective, but she can say she did something. And she will be able to show numbers that say, see, the ban works. She won't tell you why the ban works, which is that her plan is fundamentally flawed. If it gets passed, it has nothing to do with protecting people because they'll already be in jail. If she wanted to protect people, increase the mandatory time they were going to be in jail. Increase the mandatory sentence. Make it 3 years, not 2. But she won't do that. No, that would actually be effective at taking a criminal, a violent felon, out of the system, out away from the public, and deny them access to the public, which this ban wouldn't work. Because let's assume that the ban gets passed, which is unlikely in New York State. But assuming that it gets passed, and assuming that we're seeing everyone getting paroles, everyone gets the 5-year parole instead of serving 2 years mandatory in jail. Okay, how do you stop them from getting on the subway? How do you stop them from getting on a bus? How do you stop that in a city of at least 8 million people, another 2 million people visiting New York on pretty much a daily basis, up to 10 million people in this city? How are you going to stop them? How would you know if they did do this? They don't have to use an ID to get an MTA card. There's no way to know if they got on at 2 in the morning or at 7 a.m. during rush hour. You wouldn't know. How would you find that individual? How would you punish that individual? You're going to send police to follow them everywhere they go all day? Then there's the argument that I'm sure the progressives would come up with, BLM would come up with, and say, well, now you're preventing them from being able to get a job. They can't work. They can't reform themselves because you won't let them go to a job and make an honest living. Now they have to be a criminal. So again, we have a problem here. This is doing something that is ineffective and inefficient. It doesn't live up to the promise. You're going to be safe. No, you're not. This will not make you safe. If we follow it to the letter, it only creates a bigger problem down the road. That person went to jail for 2 years, came back, still has a year that they cannot use the MTA somehow. And if we somehow prevent them from being able to use the MTA, which means we're going to spend money having police follow these prisoners, that's not effective use of your money. And now those individuals cannot work. They're going to go to crime because where are they going to get their living from? Do you see how this is a problem? But Kathy Hochul will be able to say she did something, and she'll have numbers that'll say, see, it's been effective as long as we don't count anything else, as long as we don't pay attention to any of the consequences. This is insane. Now, the final 3 items are just, we're going to put in cameras, we're going to have conversations, and we're going to have a committee, and they're going to do a report, and we're going to review all of this. In other words, government is going to waste your money. They're going to have a bunch of meetings amongst a bunch of politicos, a bunch of donors, a bunch of people that really are just there to push paper left and right, push around the paper, spend taxpayer money, and come up with no solution. Because if they were effective, we wouldn't be in this problem right now. We wouldn't be in a crisis emergency situation right now if they were effective in the first place. If the cameras were effective in the first place. If their coordination and if their safety option support teams actually were able to fix the problem, they would have already done so. We wouldn't be here having to get the National Guard to move forward. Even though this is something that they're doing because there have been a large number of problems. But I want you to hear what Kathy Hochul, Governor Hochul said. For people who are thinking about bringing a gun or a knife on the subway, at least this creates a deterrent. How? These are criminals. Having a knife that's over 4 inches long is a crime in New York State. Having a firearm, Kathy Hochul has made that almost an absolute crime. Whether you have a license or not, it is almost always a crime. You're in a public space with a firearm. That's a crime. So they're not following the law in the first place. So why are they going to care about whether or not Kathy Hochul said it's a crime to have that illegal weapon on the subway? It's already illegal. They've already committed the crime. Why are they going to care if they committed yet another crime? They don't. They're criminals. So law-abiding citizens will follow this. Fantastic. They're not the problem. They're not the reason why we need the National Guard. They're not the reason why people are being attacked. And so this thinking, she said, they might be thinking, you know what? It may just not be worth it because I listened to the mayor. They don't listen to the mayor. They don't listen to the governor. They're criminals. They don't care what you think. And they have a lot more people who are going to be checking my bags. You're going to check the bags. There's 5.5 million people who use the subway on a daily basis. Mind you, that number is down from 2019. But 5.5 million people are using the subway on a daily basis. And Kathy Hochul thinks we're going to check at least 5.5 million bags, each and every person that goes on and off the subway. You really think you're going to be able to do that effectively in New York City? No, you're not. You're not. The only way you could do this is by targeting individuals, which means you're going to run afoul of the very same progressives that said you can't target individuals based on their looks or the color of their skin or where they live. So if you're not targeting high crime areas and individuals in those high crime areas, then you can't, it doesn't matter. It's random. There's a 1 in 5 million chance that you're going to find the criminal who has that knife, that has that gun, that is there to have the intent. What about the people who have a knife or a gun to protect themselves from the criminals that you haven't stopped, the criminals that you released from the prison, the one that you dropped their charges because they happen to be black or Hispanic or a woman? Yeah. What about people who are protecting themselves from those criminals? Are they now a criminal too? Are you going to punish them with 3 years? Think about that. So there's a woman who wants to protect herself because in her neighborhood, if it's like here in the Bronx, every night there are police sirens, there are fire department sirens going off all night long. Every single night, at least once to 3 times a night. So we're seeing this happen. They want to protect themselves because they get off of work late. They're afraid of gangs, of illegal aliens, whatever the case. They want to come home. They're afraid of need more drugs. So they have a knife, perhaps a gun, to protect themselves, to allow them to get home. And now you stop them and you said, well, you have this gun. Now you're banned for 3 years. 3 years. You didn't commit a crime other than having the firearm to protect yourself. You didn't threaten anyone. You didn't attack anyone. But because you were protecting yourself, you now cannot go back to work for 3 years. How is that person supposed to survive? How are they supposed to pay taxes for New York to pay for all of this? Why are you punishing the people who are following the law ostensibly, who are not a threat and not a danger? Because that's what this law does. Because Kathy Hochul thinks that because she's passing one more law, this time the criminals will actually pay attention. This time the criminals will be afraid of being prosecuted. This time the illegal aliens who have watched Kathy Hochul selectively pick and choose which law she's going to enforce and to what degree, now they're finally going to understand that the law matters in New York State. I don't think so. I don't think so. Eric Adams, who has been back and forth on this issue, he keeps reversing his position. We don't have enough money for all the police, but we do have the money for the police. And key word that I find interesting about this, why this has reached this critical level, because we keep hearing people saying some planned cuts to police and fire departments, that Eric Adams cannot afford to run this city. Too many illegal aliens. Over 150,000 illegal aliens entered into New York. Only 20,000 of them came from the southern border via a bus from Governor Abbott. That means 130,000 illegal aliens entered New York on their own. Not just from the southern border, not just from South America, but from Angola, from China, from everywhere in the world. They came here. And he can't afford it. They don't fit in all the 4-star, 3-star hotels. We have already filled all of the shelters. We have to put them into tents at Floyd Bennett Field. We're shutting down schools to make room to give these illegal aliens more places to stay. We're giving them millions of dollars, tens of millions, for food and groceries on top of the housing. So he can't afford things, and maybe we're getting the full number of police, maybe not. Again, the news keeps saying it's some of the cuts are going to happen. Some degree of reduction in the police, the fire department, EMS, schooling, some degree is going to happen because we don't have the money. We don't have the billions we need for all these illegal aliens, and they still keep the door open. More illegal aliens are coming because it's a gravy train, and that adds to this problem. Not enough police, not enough enforcement of the law, and more people who are violating the law. This is the problem we're dealing with. And when we think about it, even with, just to show you how little they care, we know that last night, March 7th, this is reported by NBC News. This is the left-leaning news media. And they're telling you, well, let's see, a Good Samaritan got slashed. He got attacked 1 a.m. It seems that the National Guard, the police, weren't able to help her. What about also this week? A man was kicked onto the tracks at Penn Station. A subway conductor was attacked with a knife in Brooklyn. Let's see, we had a 61-year-old man stabbed in the stomach in the Bronx. Criminals don't care. They don't care because police can't be everywhere all the time. Even when there's a National Guard, you can't have enough people. And I love this. We see this. Eric Adams says, we don't have a surge in crime. We have a surge in recidivism, which means people repeating their crimes, that who were let out of prisons, who were let out of jail, and they went back to committing more crime. Well, that's still a surge in crime. We do have a surge in crime, and we have even more people who are not being punished for the crime they have already committed. So that is a surge. Whether the surge is because people continue to commit more and more crimes, or whether it's new people committing crimes, it's a little bit of both, and that's still a crime wave. That is still a surge. More people are committing crimes than were committing them in the past. But they say these things to try and distract you, to deflect from the key problem at hand. And that key problem is, this isn't going to make you safe. They're not even trying to make you safe. They're trying to make you feel good about being unsafe. That they have done something. So you can go to sleep and say, they did something. And you know what they did will never work. It's like the gun control laws. They don't work. Look at this. Again, remember, Kathy Hochul was talking about people were going to bring the gun onto the subway. It's a crime. Isn't that why we had red flag laws? And we were told that will make you safe. That's the New York Safe Act. And we were told that will make you safe. We have 2,000 gun control laws in New York State. That was supposed to make you safe. But they're not. And they know it's not working. They know that criminals are bringing the guns onto subways to harm American citizens. So why are they going to stop now? The criminals have nothing to fear. This is insane, and we need to call them out. It's great to say we need to have a plan. Fantastic. Make it an efficient plan. Make it an effective plan. Let's hold these politicians accountable. It is the actions of Eric Adams and Kathy Hochul and the New York State Legislature that created the problem we are dealing with now. Their selective choice of what laws to enforce and which ones not to enforce is the reason we are in this problem. This convoluted maze of what is legal, what is illegal, what's going to be enforced and what won't be enforced or what will be enforced a little bit. That's the reason why we have this emergency. Because we have no actual leadership. They are more concerned about getting reelected, about protecting their party, than they are about protecting the American people. And as long as they are constantly trying to shove in our face, I did something, rather than saying, I'm effective, I'm efficient, I'm actually helping you, until we get to that point, none of this is going to matter. This is just showmanship. But I look forward to hearing what you have to say about it. I look forward to hearing what you think about this. And I hope you'll join us every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time when we discuss this and other issues with everyone.
No Soundbites Allowed is a podcast hosted by Michael Vass. The podcast focuses on providing in-depth discussions on various political and social issues. As the title suggests, the aim is to go beyond quick soundbites and explore topics in greater detail. Michael Vass, the host, engages with guests to analyze and discuss current events, policies, and political ideologies. The live stream and videos cover a wide range of subjects, including politics, economics, social issues, and more. By delving into longer, more comprehensive conversations, No Soundbites Allowed aims to provide listeners with a deeper understanding of the complexities surrounding contemporary issues. AI is listening. Shouldn't you know what AI knows? Aren't you tired of being treated like a child by major media parrots and want to be respected as an adult? There is nothing to lose and a lot to potentially gain, so check out No Soundbites Allowed on all major social media platforms.